to know in the world of business Mondays to Thursdays at 12:30. Let's have lunch together. The Afternoon Business Review, where Ghana's Business Day gets explained.
Crude oil production has made a significant contribution to Ghana's economic development since commercial production began in 2010 with the Jubilee oil field. The sector has become an important source of national income, foreign exchange and government revenue. It contributes to the country's GDP through oil exploration, production and related activities, while also supporting economic growth. The petroleum industry generates substantial revenue for the government through royalties, taxes, carried interest and dividends. These revenues are used to finance national development projects, including investment in education, healthcare, roads, and other infrastructure. Yes, you heard right. Crude oil is also one of Ghana's most largest major export commodities and invaluable foreign exchange that strengthens the country's balance of payments and supports economic stability. The oil industry creates employment opportunities both directly and indirectly. For the direct jobs, they are created in exploration, drilling, engineering and production, while indirect employment is generated in transportation, construction, logistics, catering and other support services. Despite these benefits, the sector faces challenges such as fluctuations in global oil prices, declining production from major or mature oil fields, environmental concerns and dependence on oil revenues. However, crude oil production has shaped Ghana's economic landscape through increased revenue, export earnings and supporting infrastructure development. Hello, good afternoon and welcome to the Afternoon Business Review here on Class 91.3 FM, where we tell you what moves money and markets. My name is Agyemang Prempeh. Welcome on board, and this is how we start the show today. Let's start with our daily activities as checking out the commodity prices, exchange rate, and stock market. We think about you. So let's start with the commodity prices. On the international markets, crude oil is selling at $79 per barrel. Yeah, I should say gold is being pegged at $4,027 per ounce, and cocoa is priced at $5,732 per metric ton. On the currency board this morning from the Bank of Ghana, the dollar is selling at 11 cedis 49 pesos and it's buying at 11 cedis 48 pesos. So you know what to do if you want to sell a dollar. You sell it for probably 11 cedis 49 pesos, and if you want to buy a dollar, you're going to buy for 11 cedis 48 pesos. The pound is trading at 15 cedis 35 pesos, whereas it's buying at 15 cedis 34 pesos. The euro is going for 13 cedis 8 pesos and is buying at 13 cedis 7 pesos. Please note these rates could be slightly different at the various Forex Bureau and banks. And as always on the Afternoon Business Review, we tell you, don't go to the black market. Neither should you go to Accra, Tudu, Circle, Airport, or wherever you want to engage a middleman or a guru boy to change your dollars. It is illegal. You can be arrested for that. So go to a licensed Forex Bureau or any commercial bank of your choice. Now let's check out how far our stocks are doing on the Ghana Stock Exchange, and Caitlin Dazi, as always, is on standby.
The stock market started the week on a declining note as 5 gainers outpaced a lone laggard. The top gainers were Hordes, Intravenous Infusions and Clydestone, while MTN Ghana declined. Driven by the price moves, the Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index dropped to a year-to-date return of 68.34%, while the Databank Stock Index declined to a year-to-date gain of 87.83%. Access Bank traded the most, accounting for 95.8% of the market turnover after trading 14.99 million shares across 25 counters. For Databank Research, Caitlin Dazi.
So it's some good 40 minutes past the hour 12 on Class 91.3 FM. You're still listening to the Afternoon Business Review here with me, and Agyemang Prempeh. It's now time for us to usher into stories shaping both local and international economies. And let's start right here from Ghana. Probably you heard from 12 Live earlier. Let's just rehash it. It hasn't had a fly. Yes, so the Bank of Ghana has revoked the Forex license of ZPay, an international online payment platform, due to breach of regulations related to its persistent failure to comply with regulatory directives and the terms of conditions of its demi-license. This was contained in a statement by the bank today, pursuant to Section 13 of the Payment Systems and Services Act 2019, Act 987. There's more in the following Newsdesk report.
Pursuant to Section 13 of the Payment System and Services Act 2019, Act 987, the Bank of Ghana says that they are announcing the revocation of the dedicated electronic money transfer license ZPay Ghana Limited with effect. That's today, July 14. Now, the issued electronic, the payment service system, specifically ZPay, one issued electronic money without maintaining corresponding cash backing, resulting in a negative variance and failed to rectify the associated risk exposure to customers and the payment system. Two, they talk about failed to comply with directives by the Bank of Ghana to A, inject sufficient funds to fully back the e-money balances of customers, agents, and merchants, and B, wind down its money issuance businesses. So these are the two reasons why the Bank of Ghana has revoked their license.
So that was the Newsdesk report detailing the statements and reasons the central bank, that's the Bank of Ghana, revoked the license of ZPay, an online payment platform. So on the Bank of Ghana, it has raised 11.50 billion Ghana cedis through its latest 14-day bill auction, signaling continued efforts by the central bank to manage short-term liquidity conditions as markets watch the direction of inflation and the next monetary policy decision. Results of tender 870 held on 13 July 2026, that was yesterday, Monday, showed that the central bank sold 11,499.95 Ghana cedis, million I should say, 11,499,095 million Ghana cedis through the 14-day Bank of Ghana bill. The result points to a relatively tight pricing band, suggesting that investor expectations for the short-term central bank instrument remain stable. The interest rate allotted in full range from 10.44% to 10.50% indicates that the market continues to price the 14-day BOG bill around 10.50% level. And on the international front, oil prices have surged to their highest level in a month as renewed hostilities between the United States and Iran continued for a third consecutive day, dampening hopes for a return to normality in the Strait of Hormuz. Brent crude, the primary international benchmark, rose as much as 3.8% on Tuesday, that's today, extending a 9.6% gain from the previous day. Brent futures for September delivery stood at $85.92 a barrel as of 8 o'clock GMT, the highest since 15th June, after easing to pre-conflict levels following Washington and Tehran's signing of a memorandum of understanding for peace last month. Brent has risen 19% from its price before the start of the US-Israel war on Iran in late February. So those are stories shaping both the local and international economies. So if you're just tuning in, you're still listening to the Afternoon Business Review here on Class 91.3 FM with me, Nana Agyemang Prempeh. I almost said Nana Oye Ankra. Well, she's the host of the show, so it's not that bad. Now, let's just move straight into a big conversation for today. So today we are talking about Ghana's crude oil production falling 6 years, costing billions of dollars, cedis, in revenue. That's according to a report by the Institute for Energy Security. And we are scheduled to speak with senior research and policy analyst at the IES, Smith Prosper Boahene. So Ghana's crude oil production has declined for 6 consecutive years, falling by nearly half since its 2019 peak and costing the country billions of dollars in lost revenue. That's according to a new report by the Institute for Energy Security (IES). According to the report, crude oil output fell from 71.44 million barrels in 2019 to 37.30 million barrels in 2025, representing a decline of almost 48%. The Energy Commission projects production will fall further to 34.83 million barrels in 2026, extending the downward trend into a seventh consecutive year. This is a major worry. So let's explore this conversation, and we've been joined on the phone line by a senior research and policy analyst at the IES, Smith Prosper Boahene. Hello, Prosper, good afternoon, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Nana, and good afternoon to your listeners as well.
You're welcome. And let me say kudos on the report too. Well detailed, and it has a lot of revelations in there. First off, I want to take it from the Energy Commission's projection before we come to the report. Your report has highlighted a downward trend for 6 years. Energy Commission is also projecting a further drop, which is going to extend it to the seventh consecutive year. This is worrying, but how dire is this situation?
Thank you very much. And let's highlight the figures again, and then take a look at the trending issues, as it were. Mm-hmm. If you look at our production from 2019, it peaked at 71 million barrels. In fact, before 2019, when we started commercial production from 2012, we had an average growth, annual average growth for about 8.5%. But right after 2019, which peaked, as I earlier indicated, we started seeing the drop. And it is a compound drop year on year for about 9% decline. And so if you take the highest figure, the second highest figure, that is 2021, that was a 17% drop, you realize you can attribute that partly to the COVID era when it was receding in terms of operational logistical mobilities. So obviously, we do not have the full maximum capacity in terms of production. But it is worth to indicate that the preceding year, which is 2020, we had a drop of about minus 6%. And then fast forward to 2025, where we had a minus 22 point something percent drop, which is largely attributable to maintenance shutdown at the Jubilee Field between March and April last year. But what is significant to note here is that just as operational shutdown happened, we saw that magnitude of drop. That should tell you that the margins of our operational resilience is very thin, very, very thin. Jubilee is the highest contributor last year, around 22.2 million barrels annually for last year, and then followed by 10, which mainly flattened around 11 million barrels. Sankofa Agyemang saw a little bit of growth of about 5%. And so if you put all of this together, you realize that we do not have, in fact, PRX highlighted that there is the fourth, there is the fifth, and there is the sixth occurrence in terms of the decline. That should tell you the persistence, the magnitude of the decline. Our petroleum receipts fell from the peak in 2024 from $1.36 billion. Now, 2025, to $770 million. That is about $600 million that have been wiped away. And if you take a backdoor look at this, the opportunity cost that is embedded in this decline, you realize that if we are able to sustain production just by, say, 3%, and this will encompass sustained investment, additional wealth, and other technological investment, just around 3%, we would have seen an appreciation of 221 million barrels from 2019 up until now.
Right.
Just 3% sustained investment. But rather, we have seen a decline of 9% compound year on year. And again, the governance at GMPC in its subsidiary Esploco is not also looking right. In fact, it is indeed on record that the 10 field did not record any petroleum receipt the first quarter of 2025. That is on record. But then again, GMPC has failed to remit close to $560 million from 2022 to 2025, as it were. And that was flagged in PIAC's report. This is not IAS findings.
Mm-hmm.
And so you realize that the stabilization fund that is meant to really be a buffer for this declining petroleum receipt has also taken a pro-cyclical decline. Just as production is declining, the buffer that is also supposed to hold the situation or mitigate the situation is also seeing a considerable decline. And so we are in difficult times in terms of our petroleum production or crude production. But the good news is that the government did announce that, in fact, in the 2025 budget statement by the Finance Ministry, that they have secured $2 billion from the Jubilee partners to engage in to do 20 new wells, across the fields. I don't have the specific as to the number of wells allocated to each field. But one thing that is worth to note, if you realize between 2023 and 2024, if you look at the figures of production data, you realize that in 2024, the decline was only about 0.01% the 2023 figures, 0.01%. And that reflected in the overall revenue and volumes of production, which I told you that we recorded the highest revenue receipt from our crude production in 2024. And that also culminated with the fact that we had, during the peak of the Russia-Ukraine war, prices hit 81, prices closed at $86 per barrel. And so it made up for the shortfall in terms of production. But if you look at what happened in terms of the marginal drop, means that there is a new well that was dug in the Jubilee South project. So that should tell you that this is not a total death call in terms of aging fields, when we are able to do targeted investment. And so the idea that production, we need to increase wells alone, yes, it is good. We secure investment, it is good. But it needs to be targeted, because the precedent is the 2024 figures, where we just saw a marginal drop in production volume.
Right.
And so if we are able to do targeted investment this time with the drilling of the new wells, we ensure enhanced oil recovery technology. And Ghana is not a novel situation. If you look at our peer countries like Malaysia also faced similar challenge, but they brought about an initiative which is termed as Enhanced Oil Recovery Initiative, where they are old and aging wells. They are able to revive it, to ensure that those wells are worked over and they are producing 10 times than what they were before. So the solution is not only with new exploration agreements or the governance of our fiscal buffers, but also new technologies, new investment, working over the old wells. That will go a long way to ensuring that we are able to revamp our production upturn.
Right. So, Prosper, it's good you brought in PIAC and this whole background, because in April this year, PIAC announced that Ghana's petroleum revenue is expected to hit $985 billion this year. which was some good news or some good news. So looking at your the trend from where you sit as researchers, you are on the ground. What is actually the problem, or what has been the problem for this 6 year run? Is it that we are not drilling enough, or we are not producing enough, or there's some form of shortfall when it comes to our exploration and all that?
Okay, first off, if we are going to hit $900 million in terms of revenue, crude oil revenue this year, it may not necessarily be a production upturn. It may be price due to pricing, because we are seeing the ups and downs of the Middle East conflict.
Yeah.
As of this morning, yesterday and today, prices have jumped. Crude prices have jumped for about 3% already.
Mm-hmm.
$2, $2.9 in addition to what it was yesterday, to around $86 per barrel. And so that may account for a bit of an increase in percentage terms or nominal terms, what we may get this year. And even that is not certain. And so that is one. But what we have been doing wrong over the period is it is not a transient causation of event, but rather it is systemic, institutional, in a lack of foresight and vision for the sector, right? So
Yeah.
you look at, we talk about, we don't have a third oil field, we don't have a fourth oil field, we don't have a fifth oil field, right? What we did in 2024, we're not able to replicate that, in 2025. And it is in 2026 that we have heard that the investment has been secured. We haven't had any news as to whether those new wells are being drilled now, or are being put to use. And so it is a chain of events, right? Petroleum receipts are not being accounted for at GNPC by its bloco. And that is also a very significant factor to note. We haven't signed a new exploration agreement. We haven't had a competitive licensing, petroleum license now, which is also a problem. If you look at Nigeria, our peer country, some time past, they instituted the either you drill or you lose your assigned acreage for exploration. And that led to some relinquishment of some acreage to rather competent people who have the financial muscles to do that. You realize that Petroleum Commission is aiming to roll out the local content fund, which is aimed at empowering local petroleum companies who want to engage in upstream petroleum exploration. I have learned that fund is looking to roll out sometime this year, and is domiciled at the Bank of Ghana.
Right.
And so that is going to give a loan to concessionary loan to individuals who want, or companies, local indigenous companies who want to engage in exploration. And so it is not only that we need to sign new petroleum agreements, but the signing of such agreement must be backed by stable funding, to ensure that we wouldn't just sign this agreement and leave it in the open, and those people too are holding on to this acreage and are not doing any significant exploration and consequently drilling. Another significant point to note here is that for GNPC since 1974, with respect to the Voltaire Basin, have not been able to produce or drill a well.
Is GNPC the problem here?
It is a combination of factors, as I earlier indicated, right? Because if we had the Voltaire Basin well being drilled by now, that could also offset the decline we are experiencing.
Right.
They proposed the earlier date this year has been revised to, I think, October, November this year. But even that is not going to be a production well. It's going to be a stratigraphic well to mainly gather data. And so we are looking at sometimes, in terms of its commerciality, the Voltaire Basin commerciality, we are looking at sometime next year, realistically speaking, next year or 2028. And so we need to be up and doing about how it is now and ensure that we move in the right direction in terms of targeted investment and commitment in the sector.
Very well.
Right? Yeah. So mainly, these are some of the things we are doing wrong, and partly some of the things we can do right going forward.
Very well. Thanks so much for your time and your submission on the show. That's Smith Prosper Boying, who is a senior research and policy analyst at the IS. We don't have much time. We would have continued this conversation, but hopefully subsequently we will come back to you and get your perspective or engage you further on this report. We really do appreciate your time and your submission on the show, Prosper.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So again, you heard the senior research and policy analyst at the Institute for Energy Security, IES, Smith Prosper Boyne. And that's how we wrap up today's edition of the Afternoon Business Review here on Class 91.3 FM with me, Agyemang Prempeh. For more news, do also visit classfmonline.com. As always, we say you do not need a dictionary to understand business news. Good afternoon.